Wipe those tears away. It's time to play Gwent, motherfucker.
Well, welcome everyone to episode 134 of the Real Gamerscore podcast. Cameron's definitely put a message on Twitter and on the Discord, so people are actually watching this, right, Cameron?
I mean, it should work. I'm just gonna check now, just to make sure.
It's always good. It's always good. Just you know, because at the moment I'm pretty sure I'm just speaking to nobody. But hey, welcome to the show. This week I'm joined by Cameron, as always.
Hey.
And our special guest Ray. This week we're probably going to talk a little bit about Yakuza. We've got a few things about how to sell consoles. And I'm going to talk about my absolute hatred for fucking minigames and games that don't need them. But first, yes.
That just ties in beautifully with Yakuza.
Yeah, and
I've thrown my head towards that all day.
But without any further ado, Cameron, here's the song of the week. Want me to play this in moderation? Does this look moderate to you? To TA gods I pay attention. I have to see it through. You got me looking for my next achievement. In games old and new. Want me to play in moderation? Well, who you think you're talking to?
Sweet. Alright. No idea.
Oh, for fuck's sake. I picked a really recent song, too. I even, when I saw her perform it for the first time live before she'd even released the single. That's how new it is. This was like 2 years ago. Anyway, the song was Moderation by Florence and the Machine. It is, again, didn't change the lyrics very much, but thank you very much to Alison for helping write that one. She did a great job. Florence and the Machine is basically her favorite band of all time.
I haven't heard one of their songs in ages, to be honest.
Really? I mean,
I had no chance of guessing that.
It's a real shame because she's great. I love her stuff.
Good music, but I haven't heard it for quite a while. Anyway.
Anyway, with that out of the way, let's get into the housekeeping. Discord. Discord is where Cameron has now finally told people to come watch the show. If you don't know what Discord is, it's basically a big chat room where we talk about the podcast, we talk about video games, we do have a looking for group channel if you want to get a boosting session together. We've got a good meme channel, we've got a serious chat channel, and if something gets big enough, we usually make a channel for it. That includes some of our competitions, we've also got one for our patrons, but essentially it's the best place to get a hold of us and also to join in the conversation around, you know, the sort of gaming stuff and achievement-related conversations that we have a lot of the time. A lot of the stuff that we talk about on here, on the podcast, ends up back on the Discord for sort of elaborate discussions with the community, and vice versa. Things that they bring up, we end up talking about on the show as well. So if you want to come join us, that's discord.io/realgamerscore. We'd love to have you. As I previously mentioned, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/realgamerscore, which, for those who don't know, is a subscription service that allows you to donate to the artists and creators that you want to support with your cold hard cash. And so we really appreciate all the patrons that we have. They allow us to essentially do this show, pay for server costs, do competitions, and we also have some exclusive Patreon content we do for them, including our world-famous Lights, Camera, and Action podcast, which is a movie podcast about video game movies currently. Where most of the time it's movies I've seen that Cameron hasn't, but sometimes we switch it up. And our most recent one that we just finished recording was Tomb Raider. So that's going to probably be coming out, and then I'm going to be finishing editing that over the weekend after I finish editing this. So those will probably come out early next week sometime. So if you're a Patreon, keep an eye out for that. And I'm also thinking about releasing the first episode, the Mortal Kombat one that we did a few weeks back, to the general public, just to give people a bit of a taste of what they're missing out on if they're not giving us some money. That is available to all our patrons from the $2 all the way up to the $10 tier. Again, we're, you know, like if you can support us, great. We really appreciate it. If you can't, totally fine. We just want to get good content out to the people, and we want you to enjoy yourselves. Where was I? Completely threw me off. Oh, it's yes, the Real Gamerscore Word Challenge. Everyone's favorite competition. Actually, to be fair, it is actually my favorite competition, non-sarcastically. Yeah, when Kirby actually does his fucking job, It's not like he has to do much now that he's not on the podcast. So, for those who don't know, the Real Gamerscore Word Challenge is a challenge in our Discord where there's a channel called Word Challenge where you put in the name of a game. And each week we release a clue around what the game is. Or Kirby gives us a clue, I should say. And if you get it, you win $10. And if you don't get it, the next week it jackpots to $20, then $30, then $40, etc., etc., etc. Until, you win someone finally gets it when it's super, super easy. Now, Kirby is great at giving useless fucking clues. So the clues that he'd given us were that it was a non-backwards compatible game, and that it was an old game in a new style, I think was the clue. So we've had quite a few guesses, and just before we went live, Mr. Keo himself, Keo Live at Home, or Live at Home, again, I've never actually heard him say it out loud. I managed to get it. The bot didn't work, so Kirby had to actually tell him that he won, but that's typical of this fucking show. That he won by guessing Leisure Suit Larry Box Office Bust, which is a horrific game. I think that's the one I did for my 700,000 or something. Some stupid fucking terrible game. Yeah, not a good game. Non-backwards compatible. It is an old series with a new coat of paint on it. Although I would argue whether it's particularly new. But congratulations! So you've won $20, and you've also won a code for Borderlands 3: The Complete Edition. So get in contact with me for the code, and make sure you bother Kirby for the money. I guarantee you I will get the code to you quicker than he will get you the money. I'll tell you right now. Anyway, we've completely neglected our guest. Ray, thank you so much for joining us. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I love to talk already anyway, so this is my platform now, my little soapbox.
Go for it.
So
take all the time you want.
I've been in game development for about 7 years now, with 6 in marketing. At the same time, I've been an active duty service member. Pretty proud of my innovation efforts so far. A lot of military app building on the side in conjunction with my normal job. So not only have I been working with a lot of indie studios and indie teams trying to help them get brought to consoles, and I've been pretty successful with that, by the way. I've got some good news to bring out a little bit further along in the podcast, if you guys will kind of let me eke that in, about some secret news for some games that are prospective coming to consoles. Just to name drop a few, Breakwaters and Lightbreak, they both really want to come to consoles. And then I have some, for sure, signed on deals already.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, absolutely.
Additionally to that, I've done a lot of work building apps, kind of like I mentioned before, consisting with, getting a lot of student teams from universities into capstones to get them to kind of work with the military and then create an app from there that would serve both parties in a sense of them getting education from it and then us getting an actual product to use for soldiers.
So I'm guessing that you're a very busy person, just from hearing that.
Yeah, so I mean, I didn't even really go into too much detail there, but meetings all the time, basically.
Yeah, no, I know what that's like. So I guess the question is, why did we bring you on the show? What's the quirk? What's the tick? What's the where's the rub?
So I guess the so what is really just to have a developer come in here and kind of share insight as to what the development cycle looks like, what an actual patch looks like in terms of fixing a broken achievement, and then what kind of rules we have to abide by. I've kind of seen some information float around on YouTube or some information being talked about on True Achievements that isn't always correct. So I think it'd be good to kind of go on record and say, like, hey, here's what it is, without giving away, too many details, of course, but enough to give people really an idea of what to look out for and what to expect. Mostly so they're not feeling heartbroken waiting on a patch, and then maybe they're more understanding as to why it takes so long.
I mean, Cameron and I sit around doing this podcast each week talking out our ass about achievements nonstop. So actually getting someone with some actual insight is greatly appreciated.
Hell yeah. I mean, I'm all for it. I could talk about it for hours.
Well, it's good because we've got at least a couple of them to fill. So Cameron, you had some questions you usually go through. So why don't Why don't you head us off?
I guess, did you want to start by talking about the Get Unobtainables Fixed thread a little bit, or where did you want to begin?
Sure, yeah, I can just dive right into that. If you want, you can like go down your list, and I'll just talk each point.
Yeah,
I'm usually used to like an agenda style meeting anyway, where somebody's like, "What about this?" and then I just keep going.
At least it's all recorded. So yeah, tell us a little bit about the Get Unobtainables Fixed thread, because I've been in that thread a couple times, so I'm curious to hear kind of how it came about and you know what it's. I mean, outside of its obvious purpose, but kind of how it works.
What sparked the idea? Was there any particular motivation?
Yeah, sure. I'll just dive right into that. So, I mean, I've been working on getting games fixed, quote unquote, as in like collaborating with teams and talking to them, kind of in the shadows for years. Because during that time, I wasn't freelance, so I wasn't able to be very open and say like, "Hey, this is what's going on with this, and I'm going to talk to these guys and get it fixed." And then I became freelance, and then that was when I was pretty much absolved of legal risk of saying things or reaching out to studios. Like I know a couple people who are active on TA right now that can't say anything because they're still obligated by certain standards to not be able to reach out to certain people or do certain things. And it's a very constricting environment where they still obviously want to help and they care, but they can't. Now I'm in a position where pretty much nobody can get mad at me for doing anything, so I can just go around and talk to whoever I want to talk to and then say, "Hey, I have this experience. I have this solution. Here's your bug. Here's your fix. Now what do you want to do?" "Oh, sure, yeah. I mean, you already got a solution. Yeah, let's go ahead and work on it together." And then sometimes they'll even let me take a peek behind the curtain and see what's going on with the actual code there and kind of dive in a little bit and kind of point at what needs to get worked on where. It's pretty much akin to like if you're a carpenter and another carpenter walks up and starts talking to you about something you're struggling with, it makes more sense than like, you know, Joe Snuffy on the street walking up and saying, "Hey, this doesn't work, make it better."
Right, yeah, of course.
And even if that person knows what they're talking about and has it right, a lot of the time, and this isn't really a punch in the face to developers, but a lot of times it's kind of a feeling of like, well, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, or you know, he's not in my same shoes. There's more work that has to be done. So they'll kind of try to ignore that, or they'll just say, "Okay, cool, Roger, I'm gonna write that down. I'll get to it." You know, it helps a lot to have somebody kind of come in with a solution ready. And then, you know, once I went public with it and saw how many people really needed help and were ready to take advantage of it, I was like, all right, let's go all for it. Let's get these contacts out. Let's start talking to people. Let's make it happen. And we've been pretty successful so far. And there's still a lot of patches coming down the pipeline to come. I got to say, though, it definitely is it's something that brings my anxiety up the wall, though, because there's a lot of stuff that is being talked about that I can't talk about until it pretty much gets done or it's about to be done. Like huge fixes that people have been waiting for. And it just bugs me because people are like, "Where's this?" And then it's like, I have something, but I'm not going to say anything because, you know, that studio isn't ready and they'd be mad if I did say something. Mm-hmm. So it's like a weird mix of preserving the relationship while pretty much not being able to say anything.
Sure, you need to manage expectations in relationships, right?
Yeah, basically. But yeah, that's pretty much the story with Get Unobtainables Fixed, of, you know, just getting it up off the ground. It's a one-man effort for the most part. Aside from like my two editors from TA that actually helped me out, it's like one man on my side coordinating with people and then sitting down with them. But those guys have been pretty helpful. I might as well shout them out really quick. It's Effigy from the thread and Phelan Saro, who's been actually creating this amazing document for me that catalogs every game that has an unobtainable ever that I'm going to try to crack through once the list is compiled all the way.
Wow, that's crazy.
It's pretty incredible work, to be honest. I'm just trying to think what to go from with there.
So, do you have any? I guess, do you have any like high profile ones that you can talk about that you can attribute back to some of the work you've done in the past? The ones you can talk about.
Like before I started doing Guff, or like in between, or just whenever.
Whenever, basically, just some good examples.
Sure, yeah. Sunset Overdrive was a good one. Getting the servers back up for that. It wasn't even really a huge emotional flex. It was just about knowing the right person and then just saying like, hey, this is going on. And of course, they care. They're a dedicated studio. It was just like, oh, okay, we didn't know this was going on. We're on it. And a lot of the times when something doesn't work right for a game, that's exactly what it is. It's not that the studio is negligent or they don't care, etc. It's that they either don't know or they don't know how to fix it. It's one of the two. It's very rare that you see somebody say, yeah, we know about it, but we're not going to do anything. And half the time when you do hear that, the reasoning behind that is, well, now it's been 5 years since we worked on the game. We no longer have associated dev kits or personnel to work on the game, so us doing that is no longer realistic. And they can still go back and do it, but that requires more of a shove on their end. And then, actually bringing up like regulations on, hey, you've agreed to this for you to have your game license on the store. So
right.
You have to do this now or it's going to have to get removed.
And so I'm sure you're pretty familiar with a lot of those regulations and rules then, having gone through this a few times.
Oh yeah, I cite them constantly. I like whenever I hear stories about a group that is specifically refusing to do anything, that's when I'll immediately cite the regs and say, hey, I heard about X, Y, and Z going on. I'll give them my backstory, kind of reach out. If I haven't worked with the studio before, if I have, then I'll just say, hey, it's Ray. Here's what's going on, blah, blah, blah. And most of the time people already know me from me talking to other people, so it isn't too bad. I think the worst scenarios are when it's a really, really, really small indie studio and it's like their only game they've put out. Then it's really tough to get in contact with some of those people. Yeah. But yeah, for the most part, it's not too bad getting together with somebody and then, narrowing things down and saying, here's what's wrong.
Cameron?
So do you want to delve into is there anything that us as consumers, should know a little bit more about the achievement rules and how they work? Like you said before, there are some certain individuals that spread a little bit of, misinformation in a way. Is there anything that you want to address there, or?
Yeah, sure. So I guess the first thing I'll say is that I've seen a lot of people say, like, I've got the inside scoop on this. Here's a document that's never been released, blah, blah, blah. Like, this is the contract they've got to abide by. Look at it. All of that stuff is actually public. You can Google it. There's actually an entire Microsoft API folder that lists everything on how to do anything with coding achievements, how it works. It's actually one of the references I specifically give people. You have to do some digging for it. Don't get me wrong. There's some hidden pages you have to go through to find it. But once you're in there, it's literally a library of information. And you can just dig in there for hours and hours. There's so much content in there. Honestly, if you were trying to bookmark every useful page for you, it can't be done. There's so much in there. It's a very comprehensive database. They even have documentation on Azure Cloud, just anything that you could imagine working with within the Microsoft realm. They have documentation for it in a separate development hub, basically. And it goes through coding achievement rules, like making them secret, making them, time-based, position-based. They give you everything. Like literally player X reaches X spot, achievement unlock. Like they go through everything. So it's very comprehensive. And when there are achievement issues, honestly, that's one of my resources I cite and say, hey, here, take a look at that. And then it'll give them essentially a clue as to what to do. Or I'll just spell it out right there rather than cite a reg or cite the page. Yeah. But getting back to your original question there, I kind of went on a bit of a tangent. Speaking really about what people need to know off rip, I would say is that, well, one of the more common questions that I've gotten actually, which this was true from what I've heard people go around and say about title updates. Yes, a game can be updated multiple times. You've seen some people that were actually pretty high profile for doing so. You've seen them go out of their way to push title updates for 1,000 G, etc., which is doable. But the limit is 5,000 if they want to keep pushing title updates. Otherwise, sorry, I have push to talk on.
Yeah, it's all good.
They'll need to put forward an ETP in order to go past 5,000. So, for example, MCC. They actually had to push out an ETP exception policy to be allowed to do more than 5K. It was actually like an agreement, like, hey, we're one of your flagship titles, pretty much. Like, MCC, you love it, so here you go. Let us do this. Let us get these extra achievements. It's got to have like proper justification, and proper justification factors into a lot of things as well. Even when it comes to changing achievement requirements or removing an achievement altogether. Removing an achievement altogether is an absolute hassle. It's rarely ever been done. I think there's less than 10 cases that are even tracked of an achievement being removed entirely, because it's such a pain to do. And Microsoft typically won't allow it regardless of justification. It's very much so an older thing that was done, and I haven't seen it done in a recent game for a very long time. But changing achievement requirements is actually very simple to do and can be allowed as long as you have proper justification. That's really what Microsoft is all about. As long as you've got a good reason for it, they'll let you do it. Like, even when you've seen those people push out a 1,000 title, like a 1,000 G title update, they technically had a valid reason, so they let them do it. So a good example of positive achievement changes, I would say, and I'll set a game for this one just because it's good praise their way anyway. Disintegration is a great example. Good studio, hardworking studio. They made a great game, pushed it out there. They had a multiplayer attachment with it. The multiplayer had achievements associated. Everything was looking good at first. Multiplayer was lively, died down really fast. They weren't comfortable with how few people were playing it, so they were like, okay, we're going to go ahead and sunset the service. Well, wait a minute. If we sunset the service, now these guys aren't going to be able to get their achievements. Let's not do that to our players. We're going to change every achievement from a multiplayer achievement to a single-player achievement. And anybody who already has that achievement unlocked is already going to have it unlocked. And then from there, all of these new players, you pick it up. They don't have to worry about an unobtainable. They just go in, play it, enjoy the game for what it is. No hard feelings about not getting a chance to play multiplayer. And it worked. They got amazing PR. They, no backlash from Microsoft because it was proper justification. And it ultimately just made them look good. A lot of other studios can do the exact same thing. It's absolutely not an emotional flex by any means. It's literally just a matter of a submission with your reasoning as to why, going through QA again for that patch, and you're all set.
So I say if it is that simple, why do we see so much reluctance from a lot of developers to do that kind of stuff?
So honestly, I think it might just be lack of know-how in some cases, and I don't want to say everything is incompetence. For some, it just doesn't seem time effective for them or worth it. Generally, I think it's always a safer bet to just have an open customer service line, being able to talk to your players, and then being upfront about your reasoning as to why you're trying to do something, or at least speaking out. Because a huge issue that I've seen is something will happen, they'll know about it, and then they won't say, yes, we know. And then people are saying, okay, these guys suck. They're not listening to us. We've sent in, 30 complaints. And then the worst is when you see a studio sunset their Discord server and they get rid of it, or they close down a Twitter account. It's like, hey, stop doing that, because you're not helping anybody by doing that. You're not helping you. You're not helping the player, because now they feel like they're not being listened to and you're not getting any feedback. The best thing, anybody who's looking at developing, listening to this podcast right now, or even remotely considering getting affiliated with any gaming studio, keep an open customer service line, because your CM is your make or break. Your community manager is your make or break. Yeah. If that guy isn't listening to anybody or listening to any of your players, you're done for. You're done for customer service wise. Your PR is going to tank immediately. That is literally the most important person you need to have. You need some young, spunky individual who's savvy with Discord, savvy with Twitter, savvy with email, ready to talk to people. I can't stress it enough. There's been issues before where I've had to deliberately go around a CM because they would not assist me or assist players, and then speak to their boss and then interject to development staff personally to get an issue resolved, which is definitely not something that you want to have for your company or just to be public facing in general. It's not a good look. And for the most part, it's really
Lost you again.
All right, I might just take off push to talk while I'm doing this.
But yeah, 100% agree. It's definitely not a good look.
And we've seen, we've seen a lot of that stuff in the past. But I guess again, that open communication really is key, because just acknowledging that there is an issue and that it's either being worked on or it's not. Just letting people know so they're not just making up their own worst case scenarios in their head really makes all the difference.
And it comes down to that customer service expectation too, of like managing people's expectations. You might not have all the answers there, but you have that open, honest communication. Hey, I'll go to the devs. I'll have that, I'll bring the issue to them.
Yeah, and honestly, I've noticed that's when they're more upfront and honest, is when they get approached by a peer to say, hey, yeah, we're messed up in the game here. We don't know what's going on with XYZ. It's like, hey, man, that's great. You should just tell that to the people. Let them know. Yeah. Let them know, hey, we don't know what's going on, but we're trying to fix it. That's a million times better than stone-faced just saying, hey, we don't know, like we're not going to work on it at all, or, just not responding at all. It's better to say, we don't know how to fix it, but we're working on it, than to not say anything. You had another question earlier, but I think I got off track talking about that because there's such a deep rabbit hole when you start talking about issues like this. But I think there was an original question that you mentioned that I kind of got away from.
Yeah, I had a question around. So we talk about how our achievement hunting community is a niche of a niche of a niche, right? We are a very, very small fish in terms of the Xbox community in general, and then the gaming community as a whole. But obviously, there are some very vocal people. Who are very, we're very passionate about achievements, and this unobtainable stuff is a real bugbear for a lot of people on TA. Like how hard do these people need to push? Like how much noise do you need to make for these developers to take notice? I mean, like we've talked about community managers and discords and things like that, but like realistically, how loud do we need to bang the drum? How many people do we need to have get the torches and pitchforks out before something actually gets done most of the time?
I guess on top of that too, I just want to add, how do you communicate with those developers and publishers that know that there are broken achievements, but see it as more of that's a feature that doesn't need to be worried about. The game works fine.
Okay, two very good questions. I'll start with the whole that's a feature and we don't need to worry about it. So the second that I hear that, or I've noticed that response happens, I inform them right away, like, hey, this is if I have evidence, for example, like I quite literally have a screenshot of a player with an email from a dev studio saying like, hey, yeah, we're not going to do anything about it. That's when I pretty much say like, hey, this is an open admission of you saying we're not going to do anything, which can prompt an on-the-spot review of your game by Microsoft if reported through appropriate channels and it gets up to them. And if it's seen a lot on Twitter, for example, that's a huge one too. Like if open negligence is seen on Twitter and then spammed up to them, like if you get noise off of something like that, that's like a nail in the coffin pretty much. It's like a, ding, ding, ding. Hey, look at these guys. They're doing the wrong thing. When it comes down to how many people should we get banging the drum, and in certain occasions, I would say it doesn't even need to be that. It can start with one person reaching out and saying, hey, here's what's going on. And then if you don't hear anything, then, you get a couple more people in there. And then if they're just straight up ignoring you guys, honestly, it's a terrible answer, but take to Twitter and say like, hey, this is going on. Hey, this is going on. Hey, this is going on. And then if they're really ignoring you, then straight up, this is not a healthy thing to say. I wouldn't recommend it, but you could go the Better Business Bureau route of saying, hey, these guys are quite literally not doing what they're supposed to do. Or taking up with Microsoft Direct and saying, hey, I'm having this issue with this studio, and they said they will not fix their product. I want a refund.
Well, that was a case with Black Ops 3's... Kiki will probably remind me in the chat of which DLC it was. I think it was Go Ride. But
yeah,
basically they went
to... I heard all about that.
Yeah. To get that fixed. That's the only, I guess, example I can think of off the top of my head.
Do you want to give some context for that? Because I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. And
Sure, yeah. So basically, there was an issue going on where there's a couple bug achievements in that DLC, and then there was a lot of ignoring done, and then there were some statements that came out where they were saying like, hey, yeah, we don't care, blah blah blah. It's not cost effective for us. And then people took to Better Business Bureau. I think I know the person exactly who took to it. I had a little bit of my fingers in there on that, but I will not take credit for that because it was definitely the Better Business Bureau initiative on that part that really got them to turn around and change their minds. And then there's a Reddit petition as well that blew up and got very big. I think a lot of that too is since the Call of Duty community, if once they see an issue and they see people are vocal about it, even people who weren't concerned about that took to that petition and were like, hey, yeah, I like this game. Oh man, I can't believe they're doing this to people. Yeah, upvote that. And then, sure enough, that got a lot of recognition, and then people got it fixed. Realistically, any situation where something is, completely just not working out game development wise, and somebody's not helping you out as a service provider for you when it comes to a game that they've created, then Better Business Bureau is an option. Being loud, being vocal is very much so an option, to get things on the right track. Of course, I think it's important to be cognizant of when to apply that and when you should really hold off on that. Because another thing I want to mention too, and I'll just kind of talk that piece now, interacting with devs, some people need to be kind of careful because I've seen some interactions before where I've had to interject and say, hey, that's not okay. You shouldn't be talking to these people like this just because, you want this product to be fixed. Because it's understandable, but most people won't know about, what I've told you about already, where, there are issues where, people can't work on the game anymore. There's been there was actually an instance that happened recently where a game team pretty much had a new team take over for the port of their game. So it's in their particular publisher to porter negotiation that they had with somebody, they had a separate team assigned to them from their publisher that would be working on the ported version of their SKU, stock keeping unit, for the Xbox.
Right.
So that other team was essentially given all accountability for making that version work. The original team still had their name attached to it because they did all the base work. They essentially file dumped to the team that would be working on the Xbox version. And then when issues arose there, the other team was getting blamed. And they were like, hey, it's actually these guys at this studio. Reach out to them, let them know what's going on. And then they were getting extreme backlash. And I noticed some people were saying things like, it's been X amount of months. How dare you, not provide me with this service? I'm going to, do X, Y, and Z to your family, and like making, crazy threats. And when you jump onto that level, it gets way too far. And forums, online forums in particular, have a huge impact when it comes to devs. A lot of them are silently reading the forums. Even on sites like TA, they will silently read those forums, and they will not respond, but they will see what is written there. A good example, actually, I'll stay away from that. I won't say the name of the game, but there was a game a long time ago that was a passion project between a father and son. They had made a game together, very much so a B game title that went all the way through the correct channels and got published and was pushed to Windows 10. And it was a good little title. Not a lot of people enjoyed it for what it was, but for those that care, it was an easy 1000G, and it was a nice little tale of B game development, if you will. And it was interesting to see that creative process. I personally didn't get the chance to play it because it was already gone by the time I got there. But essentially what happened was somebody had said, hey, this game sucks. And then somebody else piled on and said, yeah, this game sucks. And then they said, some more choice words that I won't repeat. And then it got to the point where, the dev eventually responded and was like, hey, why are you guys being like this, blah, blah, blah. Told a story. And then, people started coming after him on, his Twitter saying like, yeah, and there was nothing wrong with this game either. They were just saying like, hey, it sucks. So then his direct response to that was, okay, I'm going to discontinue service for my game. I'm going to get, live services removed, I'm going to delist it. I'm not going to update it anymore. I don't care if it's compatible with regs. I'm going to let them remove it from the store. And that's exactly what happened. So online interaction with devs should be taken a little bit more carefully, because devs are 100% human beings too. And I've seen some crazy comments out there like oh, people don't play Xbox games for just fun. We play for achievements only. These are console expectations. Deal with it. And it's like, whoa. These aren't console expectations. These are your expectations, my guy. Don't come in here with that bad juju. But, I've seen some stuff like that, and it is definitely alarming.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, like TA is an interesting microcosm of this as well, but gaming in general brings out some very interesting personalities in people. I mean, a lot, and like, again, I know I'm generalizing in terms of saying that, not everyone who plays video games are, basement dwelling people who have never touched a woman. But having said that, the people who get obsessed about achievements probably lean more in that direction than the regular game population. And social interaction, when things get heated or frustrated, when something affects something that's very important to them. I mean, look, I've been there, right? Like I've had situations where I have games that frustrate the fuck out of me in terms of like Mantis Burn Racing was a perfect example. It's like they shut down their servers with there was no warning, there was nothing. I bitched about it on another podcast, and by the time that podcast came out, actually, they'd fixed it, and I managed to get the achievements for it. But like I get it. Like, you want to be like, well, I want to do something about this, and I feel powerless because they've just taken this thing away from me, or they've broken this thing that's very, very important to me, through no fault of my own. And I can understand the frustration, but you're 100% right. Like they're still human beings, and at the end of the day, it's just fucking video games. And people need to take it. People need to take a step back and be like, all right, like, obviously this is hugely important to me. I'm like, it's massively important to me too, right? Like, I've put like, what is it? It feels, I feel hundreds of thousands of hours into this stuff, but I'm still, at the end of the day, I have to, like, I turn the console off and actually have a life. And like, it's like, sure, like, I'm still annoyed that I'm not going to ever be able to get 100% because of, server shutdowns of things like Homefront and Forza 2 and Naruto and shit like that. But like,
I mean, essentially it's a broken product. It's not like somebody's just taken your firstborn.
Exactly. And people need to, I think people need to manage expectations a little bit, and yeah, you're 100% right. Treat them like human beings, because yeah, like, most people aren't dicks, right? Like like you said, it's probably something that they just, didn't consider, didn't realize was happening, and they weren't like cackling while pressing a button to delete all the services that you wanted, right? Like yeah.
And that's literally the most common thing that I'll see, is that they quite literally do not know. And you'd be surprised, it's even things that haven't been fixed for years. And they'll literally be like, oh yeah, I've never heard about this ever. And then it's like, okay, well, here's all the information you need. Here's a pile of evidence of why it doesn't work. Here's all of the P stats, all of the analytics, and everything that I can provide you that shows why this doesn't work. And they'll go, oh, okay, well, yeah, we'll get working on fixing it. And then when they, I've heard, hey, we don't want to give a timeline out because we don't want anybody to expect it by this date, just in case work comes up onto the project. I'm like, okay, too easy. I'll tell you what, give me an approximate date. I will track it internally. I will get back with you. We'll have regular touch points just to see how things are doing, or if you need any help from me. And that's what we do. We have regular touch points. There's and sometimes, I'll be honest, it gets a little bit hairier with AAA studios, but I've gotten a lot more. I don't want to say like. I'd say I've gotten a lot more permissiveness from AAA studios now, where I'm getting invited to more summits, and I'm able to hear more about what's going on now, rather than before, where I was kind of picking up scraps from people on the sidelines. Now I'm kind of pretty much there at the table, saying like, okay, cool, I'm going to listen to what these guys have to say. Hey, what about this? Are we talking about this? What's happening with this? And I can kind of raise issues now, whereas before I was just kind of able to whisper to people. Now I can actually, I have a louder voice now, and I can get some more action on things, and it's been proving to be pretty useful so far, for better and for worse. Like one of the things that happened recently was a larger AAA studio decided they were going to sunset a lot of services, but the exact phrasing that we had discussed before was, yeah, we're going for a more customer facing route. We're gonna help out everybody. We're gonna optimize all of our titles, and we're gonna focus on more games to just make sure that the online services are better. We're gonna make sure all the achievements work. We're gonna go ham on our 2 new AAA titles, and we're gonna make sure that all these work perfectly. All these bugs that people are talking about, we're gonna get them all fixed. Everything's gonna be great. And I was like, all right, awesome. And then they, I think 2 weeks later, it was like, hey, yeah, so you guys remember how we were talking about these old games? Yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and discontinue the online services for all these. And it was like, oh, all right, that's what you meant by you were gonna optimize all your services and then support these other games better. All right, I don't really like that, but okay.
Yeah,
I still have a voice, so I can't expressly say no.
Sure.
I could just say I strongly wouldn't recommend doing that. But for the most part, I think in the years to come, we'll see a lot more customer-friendly development teams coming about, because I think it's becoming more apparent that people are kind of getting sick of the feeling of oh, well, if this game is broken, it might never get fixed. Why bother? Because a lot of that sentiment has been going around lately, and development teams are becoming very cognizant of it. And AAA studios are actually doing a really good job now of saying, like, hey, we need to start actually telling people when things are going to shut down. We need to start actually watching out for these issues preventing achievements from working, because any issue should matter to us, even if it's as small as somebody's hair clipping through their clothes. Because this is still our product. At the end of the day, we're still supporting it. We need the welfare of our community, or we're not going to be able to keep pushing out titles. People are getting sick of this really fast. And that sentiment is really going around, and it's been affecting a lot of smaller studios very positively. And honestly, I'll go ahead and throw out a name here, but Radalaika is a really good example of a high-profile indie studio that is actually doing a really good job at showing what proper customer service looks like. Of course, they love to have their achievements a certain way, and there's a misconception about how they do their achievements. There's a whole separate thing about that, but I'll bring that up to you guys off the podcast if you guys want to just discuss that. I don't want to put them on blast.
Sure.
And anyway, but there's certain ways that things are done. Like I know there's a misconception about a lot of studios doing easy achievements a certain way. It's actually not intentionally done easily. You'll notice that some completions are longer for a reason, and they have a very interesting mentality with how they do theirs that I would like to talk about, just not on here.
Sure. I said we'll definitely talk about that afterwards.
But they're a really good example of proper customer service, because if you find Radalaika in an environment where you can talk to him, like Twitter, he'll respond to you. If you find him on Discord, he'll talk to you. It's Twitter, a very open communication. Yeah, and then just even people like Zidalon or sometimes a lot of those developers and publishers, they'll sit out there and they'll talk to you. If you find them, you can talk to them, and they'll go through a whole spiel about, yeah, here's what's going on with me. And that's part of the new age of customer service that we're seeing from these guys that are now sprouting up and getting big, because we started giving them positive publicity, and they're going for bigger projects, getting more acquisitions. Like originally, Radalaika put out 1 game a month, 2 games a month. Now they're up to 4 or 5 games a month. And to some people, it may seem like they're pumping out a lot of games. No, what they're actually doing is helping small indie devs finally hit the limelight and get out of their bubble, get out of the Steam cage, quite literally the Steam cage, and jump out to consoles, a thought that most of them thought was never going to be possible. And part of why Radalaika gets so many acquisitions is because they're not just using one set engine. They have access to, Construct 2, Ren'Py, stuff that is usually price gouged when working with another publisher or a porter, like usually those prices are insane to try to coordinate. And those small teams usually cannot afford to negotiate a contract like that because it's just not beneficial. Whereas that's a much more favorable option for them because for Radalaika, that is a commonplace thing. So they're more than willing to help a small indie team get out there. That's why when I go through the whole development management portfolio process and start trying to, just when I'm doing normal acquisitions with people, when I'm talking to them about, hey, who do you want to publish and port with? How do you want to do this? How do you want to do that? I try to pair them up. If they're super indie, I will pair them up with a quote unquote smaller, but now they're quite big, indie publisher or porter, so that they have somebody who is not near peer, but close enough that it's not a giant monolith against them to, get out there. They don't feel nervous during acquisitions. And a huge misconception with smaller indie devs, especially if it's their first game, is that they 100% think that they need to impress their porter, impress their publisher, and do everything at their whim, which is not true at all. It's very much so a double-sided relationship. And this is some of the stuff that happens in the background that you guys don't know about, but there's always a negotiation of, hey, how much of a cut are we getting per sale of your title on this platform? And then, those numbers are ran through of, okay, if I'm releasing on all these platforms, how much am I truly making to get this end result? And then, factoring in the cut that Microsoft takes as well. There's a whole thing that happens in the background there. And then, how that relationship gets worked out on, like, hey, how many people are you allotting to assist us in this project? Do you have anybody? What kind of expertise are you bringing to the table? And that all factors into the final price of, okay, this is what we're getting per sale. This is what we're doing, how we're going to do it. It's a whole big thing. And that's part of why you don't see as many games come to consoles, because they're so very nervous of the idea of trying to get with a publisher or a porter, and they think that it's something that's so past their reach that they don't even try to go for it. And they'll say, okay, we'll do Steam, we'll call it good. We'll do all these other PC platforms, call it good. Because they don't know what is required, and they don't know that those tools are there. Even though ID at Xbox is so prevalent, they'll still stray away from it because it seems like so much additional work that they feel they don't have the time for. So and this has happened a good bit already, I'll come in out of nowhere and say, hey, I see your guys' game. What do you guys think about doing ports? Oh, we don't know because this and this. And I'm like, okay, I'll tell you what. I have a couple easy ins with people. If I can get you in a room with this guy, what do you think? Oh, well, then maybe, and like the whole thing changes from there, because now they see we've got this opportunity, we can make it happen. And then part of that now is having an in with that team that then comes to Xbox. And this kind of goes full circle back into Guff. If I'm helping a team port and publish to consoles, now I'm quite literally in their infrastructure. And if they do have an issue, I'm already right there to say, hey guys, it's me again. This issue, let's fix it. It just goes full circle. It's a whole rabbit hole. Once again, sorry if I'm going on crazy tangents, but it's like 4 a.m. here.
Yeah, that's all good. It's all good. Now that's like super fascinating, and a really interesting look into how a lot of, like you said, a lot of that stuff that we just don't see because we just have no visibility of it. All the stuff that happens behind the curtain. You talked a little bit about delisting. Do you have any sort of examples around like how that process works? Because it does, again, to us, it's like, oh, well, this thing's being delisted. And sometimes it's like, oh, maybe we theorize, oh, maybe it's a licensing agreement, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. But like, obviously, yeah, I'm sure Microsoft has some checks and balances that they have to go through before that process to happen. Do you have any sort of insight into that?
Is it
yes, and yes to all of those questions back to back, 100%. So I guess the first thing that I'll talk about is self-delisting. Self-delisting is a common thing that can happen, usually done by the publisher. So pretty much a good rule of thumb is that the publisher is going to hold the license for the game on the store, their stock keeping unit. So a good example, I don't want to name drop them because this is not positive publicity, but there's a game recently that came out with a access enhanced upgrade, and people were like, "Oh man, why is this coming out with this upgrade?" There's no point. Like a lot of people hate seeing that additional stack. Some people love it. I'm fine for it either way, but some people see it as like a cash grab money move. Sometimes that happens because the original team that was there for their publishing deal is either no longer affiliated, whether that be through a legal issue or they're just not willing to work with them again based on something that happened internally. So they'll release it as a separate SKU so they have rights over it on the platform. Because, you know, they can't, either their first version was delisted or they can't make money off of that version anymore, so they'll make a new one. There are a select few cases, though, where you'll see them just make an access version just for giggles. There's been plenty of studios I've talked to where they said, hey, we're going to do that. And then I say, hey, not a good idea. Probably don't do that. I know some people would disagree with that, but in many of those instances, they were going to say, in lieu of fixing broken achievement, we're just going to make a new version with the achievement fixed. I say, no, let's go ahead and fix the one that's got the broken achievement, and then we can talk about doing whatever we want to do after. Because either way, that's still going to bring about bad PR, and it's going to result in a delisting anyway.
It makes it look like a cash grab, too, from the studio.
It definitely does. It's not a good look. Sometimes it is necessary, and I can give you the specific anecdote of who I'm talking about once we hop off net here, but that specific studio that I am referencing, they had a legal issue, and then they had to make an entirely separate SKU to be able to essentially make profit off of the game again. Yeah. And they had that particular studio, unfortunately, has had a string of legal issues where they absolutely just got put through the ringer, and once again had an issue on their hands where their game was being delisted due to a negative.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. It's one I've been following quite closely. Yeah, it's yeah.
Yeah, I think you're already picking up what I'm putting down. Like, and if you have a bad relationship with your publisher or your porter, it's immediately a nightmare. And I honestly heavily fight against people pursuing a negative relationship just to get a game out there, because in the long run, it's not going to be good for either party. Yeah. And usually that's one of the things I'll say, especially when I'm helping a smaller indie group negotiate with a porter or publisher. I say, hey, check it out. I know you feel like this is your one and only chance to hit the limelight. It's not. They want you just as much as you want them, and there's literally an additional 6 other groups that are sitting right behind this guy waiting to talk to you about your game that I can set you up with. Do not feel pressure. If you feel uncomfortable with this negotiation, tell me you feel uncomfortable. I will nix it right then and there. We can respectfully tell them, hey, we're pulling out of this. We don't like where this is going. They will understand, and then we'll get you to somebody else who you are more comfortable with, that suits your needs as a studio and meets the correct engine, has the correct experience that you need to get work done on the game. It's happened many times before, and it's never ended in a negative end state. It's always been a positive change. And then I wanted to jump back to one of your questions you had earlier, the one that I said yes, and yes to. I think it was you were asking about the delisting process. So I talked a little bit about self-delisting. I'm going to go ahead and hop into forceful delisting. So if you, for example, the PC regulations are infinitely more strict than the console regulations, which completely blows my mind. I really would have thought it would have been the other way around. But when I actually sat down and read through all the documentation, I realized that publishing to the Windows 10 Microsoft Store is far more strict for whatever reason. And but here's what's backwards about it. The QA for publishing an Xbox variant is far more strict than doing a PC version. Your initial regulations are far more strict, and the initial submission process is far more strict on Windows 10. Like on Xbox, for example, there's a particular studio I'm talking to recently that released a game on they released a game on Windows 10, and then people immediately said, why are we getting the sequel to this game? We never got the sequel to this game on Xbox. So I was like, that's a good point. Let me ask about that. So I asked about it, and it was like, hey, yeah, it got hung up in QA. This game will come out next month probably. And I was like, hey, so what happened? Did they gig you on something stupid again? And it was like, yeah, they got us on on if you turn off your controller while you have a wireless headset on, when you turn your controller back on, the audio doesn't come through right away. An additional 30 days, pretty much, because I had to figure out how to fix that issue. And stuff like that happens with patch QA as well, which is part of why you'll see a game get held up for so long, is because they'll fix an issue, but unbeknownst to them, they'll break something else in the code, and then they'll send it all through thinking it's good. It'll go through all the checks and balances, then it hits QA, and then they'll say, hey, nope, we found this, send it back. And then they'll be like, damn it, people were expecting this to come out next week. Now we have to tell them it's not coming out next week. And that's part of why you'll see a lot of studios not give you a date, or they'll just say it's on the way. A very prevalent issue on TA that I've been providing a lot of insight for, specifically that game that has a title update coming out at the same time as the patch. If you guys are picking up what I'm dropping down, I got a little bit of a DLC add-on. That's a good example of them being scared about saying, hey, this is when it's going to happen, because they don't want it to get hung up in QA, which I think it already did, because the patch was submitted like 2 weeks ago. I think it already did get hung up because people who were stalking it online already saw the dev kit unlocks as well.
Yeah. So everyone's sort of looking at their watch going, hang on a minute, I'm pretty sure the QA process shouldn't take this long. What's happening? Yeah.
So that's a good example. It probably got kicked back again. And that adds so much time, because just for Microsoft to review it, you're already looking at about a week, 2 weeks, just for them to review it and then get it all the way through the QA stage on their end. Not even factoring in that studio's own internal QA that they have to review again before they push the patch out. So it's quite literally, we find the issue, we fix the issue, however long that takes. Okay, cool. Now we're going to run QA again. All right, looks good to us. We're going to send it through. Okay, Microsoft is going to go ahead and run their QA. All righty, cool. It looks good. Now we can finally get the patch through. And there's more that goes into it, but that's a very abbreviated version of what happens on the road there. And then, when you're submitting a new game, whether it be from, like, if you're a really small studio submitting through ID at Xbox, you give them like a whole roll-up of, this is all the information about my game, here's the file, and then if they find something they don't like, this is where there are tons and tons of games in the Creators Collection that were meant to go on the store and have a full achievement list. There are tons. If you ever look at the Creators Collection and say, why is there so much stuff in here? Most of those are games that were rejected specifically on the grounds of that Microsoft just didn't like something in there. And a lot of the times, they will not say what the issue is.
Oh, wow. That's massively unhelpful.
Yeah.
Yes, which is unfortunate. This is no diss on them. I understand they get a lot of submissions, but it is infinitely more helpful to tell somebody what they're doing wrong rather than just say, hey, we don't like it. And the specific message that those teams will usually get is it's something along the lines of, hey, this currently doesn't meet ID at Xbox expectations at this time, and this is more like a Creators Collection thing. And then they'll just let you bring it up in Creators Collection, which means you have no achievement list, etc. And whether that be the game just doesn't seem polished enough to them, or it's not long enough, but that's very much so a double standard, because I've seen games go through that are, very much so not polished at all, and then get a list. Specifically, one publisher I was talking to quite literally referenced another game that they had that came out, and they said, this game is infinitely less polished than this, and then this is one that I've spent like a year working on, and they still kick it back every single time. A lot of these studios have like 5, 6, 7 games that have been rejected, and they've sent through more than 5 or 6 times, and they keep getting kicked back. So they just release them to Creators Collection and just let them be. And then the reviews, they get bashed saying, why are there no achievements? I've seen you push out games with achievements before, etc.
While achievements are a small part of a small community, they have a large impact on the people that it matter to. And good achievements are like good music. Most of the time, you don't even notice. Like they're like, it's great when you get hard ones, but most of the time it's like, cool, I got that achievement, not a problem, goes on my tag, I've got a memory forever. It's the ones that either don't work or have issues with them that really stick out, and that's the things that stick in your mind. And I think that's something that is the reason people get so passionate about this stuff.
Yeah, spot on. I mean, even even me being a senior developer, there's definitely been several times where there's been an achievement that's really grinded my gears. But then, once I finally, awesome.
Yeah.
The pain is over. The pain is over.
I don't know why we do this to ourselves. It's absolute masochism, but I'm sure Freud would feel there.
And then I guess I'll loop back around onto talking delistings again a little bit, because I went on another tangent because I got so excited about talking that piece. But delisting, when the studio doesn't want a game delisted, specifically usually happens through an on-the-spot review from Microsoft, whether that's an influx of negative reviews saying, this doesn't work, this is broken, yada, yada, yada. Microsoft will review that and say, okay, we're getting all these negative complaints. We've heard all of this about it. Okay, we're going to conduct an on-the-spot review of your game. And then they're going to check through it. They're going to say, okay, this issue is present. Okay, we don't like this. You need to fix this now because people are talking about it. People are starting to push out refunds. We're not having it. So I'll tell you what, we'll give you a period. I think the period was 60 to 90 days, something like that, where they give you that period. They say, okay, go for it, fix your game, get back to us. We'll come back in X amount of time to review. And then if those issues aren't fixed, they say, all right, where's my stuff? It's still not fixed. All right, we're going to give you one more review period. And then after that, we're going to revoke your live services for the game, which means that the game will no longer work with Xbox Live, will no longer support achievements, etc. And then the end state after that, if it's still not fixed, they completely remove it from the store, and then it can't be purchased anymore.
Mm.
And that'll be when you see a forceful delisting. There are other instances, very rarely, where they've pulled a game outright. A lot of the time when you see a AAA studio kind of get away with having broken achievements, it's very much so, and this is definitely not a diss on Microsoft. I understand 100% from a business standpoint that people are still going to buy the product even if there are broken achievements.
Yeah.
Or maybe they don't know about it. It's a big company, so I can understand when information doesn't get to the right people because it happens all the time. Any company I've ever been affiliated with, there's always been issues where information doesn't get to the person who needs it, which it's just a symptom of a greater problem. It happens. It's totally understandable, but we gotta hold some of these bigger studios accountable, because there's definitely instances where people will skirt the line, and then they'll have a broken achievement, and then Microsoft will kind of hand wave it, or they'll omit them from that whole process of a on-the-spot review unless they get literally an explosion of negative feedback. You need something along the lines of what happened recently. I wasn't going to say the name.
That's why I say it for you. That's why I say it for you.
Thank you. So then I am forced to talk about it. But yeah, you need something along the lines of what happened with Cyberpunk to happen, where so many people are outraged. And hilariously enough, when I played through that, I had next to no bugs.
Yeah, that is the thing, right? Yeah.
Yeah. The only one I had was the one that I manipulated to get all of the money to buy all of the vehicles, which is the most terrible achievement in the whole game, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
For killing, I wish I remembered her name. The giant lady in the mall with the giant hammer.
I still haven't played it, so I have to. We're still waiting on that next gen release.
Dang, you missed out then. That's going to take you very long. What was it? It's like more than $2 million just to get all of the cars in that game. Oh man. But yeah, I think AAA accountability is something that doesn't happen a lot nowadays, and
definitely been thrust into the limelight.
Yeah, and it's definitely good though that a lot of studios are taking a more customer-friendly approach now, because we don't have to worry about that. Whereas they totally could have pulled that card, and realistically, a lot of studios right now could kind of pull a card of saying like, yeah, we're just not going to work on it anymore, and a lot of people would be left in the dust. And it's good though that we do have these regs to refer to and say, hey, you are still obligated to work on this. I honestly encourage anybody to go through the regs and just if you want, I can link you guys that folder I was talking about, and it literally leads you to all the regs, leads you to everything. people can read through it, get informed, and then if you do approach a developer about an issue, you have these regs to refer to. Albeit, I would say approach them tactfully, and then only bring these up if they're refusing to help. Then say, hey, these are the regulations that you agreed to. Please uphold them, etc. And that's when you can kind of dive into, hey, if this doesn't get fixed, this isn't the product I paid for, and I will report it. Blah 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 blah. And that's of course further down the line. You always want to give people a chance to fix things first. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, in short, that's how those delistings happen. When they're forcefully delisted, an on-the-spot review happens. If they fail that review, they get another chance, like a grace period almost. Fail it again, they lose their live services, and then that's it for them.
I have one last question before we move on. So you talk about how changing achievements is a relatively simple process for the most part, like changing the requirements for achievements. Is that exclusively for, say, the Xbox One generation onwards? Is there a split between how achievements are done, say, like 360 era compared to today? Because obviously, there were changes in terms of infrastructure, in terms of where achievements are based on servers and stuff like that. Because again, a lot of the where I have seen changes for achievements have been on like Xbox One games, for example. Is that just because it's possible now, and those are more recent games, or is it still possible to go back and change a 360 game?
So it's still possible to go back and change a 360 game. There's been a lot of effort done on that front. There's even titles that were initially delisted that are looking at coming back and then being brought back as a backwards compatibility title. So there's still definitely a lot of work being done on that front. It's not an insurmountable task. Of course, people will reference back in the day, there used to be a cost for putting out a patch, which obviously made a lot of indie studios stay away from doing that. Now Xbox is very much so in love with the idea of bringing indies to Xbox because it is a money factory. Indies are quite literally the new thing. People love to get their hands on games anywhere and everywhere, regardless of what it is, even if it's a B game all the way to damn near a AA game. They're interested in whatever they can pick up. So Xbox is all for it now, and they've omitted that, and that's no longer a concern. It's just a grueling certification process for some.
Sure.
But we can still definitely dive back into the 360 era and get things fixed there. It's just a matter of who's still around, who's still available, and who can still do something for that title. I think a good example of a positive update was Phantom Breaker. After the Xbox One was released, it was actually a good couple of years after. They released a DLC, released two DLCs, and a slew of new achievements. So it's still definitely possible to work on your older titles and then get things fixed and even add new achievements. It's just dependent on who's willing to do work on them, and just where the motivation is and where the staff is at that time.
So you're saying if I want to get the auction house up for Forza 2, I need to really go and start yelling at some people?
No, see, I haven't been looking into Forza issues yet because it's such a can of worms for me because I don't have a lot of good contacts there. But
that's what I've got a few unobtainables on my tag, and it's just like they always show up, and every now and then I was like, oh hey, it got fixed, jump on that. But it is what it is. So it's
touched a lot of motorsport titles. Like I love Horizon, but everything in Horizon is pretty much unobtainable even if it is delisted.
Legacy sunsetting mentality, which isn't healthy. I always advocate for, just changing requirements, if anything, because it like I said earlier, it does so much more for the player base.
Yeah,
I'm a fan of X or Y. Like try and go the X route. If it doesn't work, have the option of going the Y route. Make the have a multiplayer achievement that's somewhat easy, and then make the single player
harder but still possible. Yeah. You're thinking like the Mass Effect 3, right?
Yeah.
Oh, like have that contingency.
Yeah.
Have a contingency in place that if multiplayer servers do go down at some point, it's still obtainable.
Yeah. And dual requirements are still a thing. People can still definitely do it. I personally just haven't seen that done a lot recently, and once again, I think that's solely because people aren't realizing that they can. Whereas once again, If they don't know how, there's quite literally a gigantic document that says this is literally how you do it, and they give you an exact like C++ of like this is what you need to type and how you would have to do it in
Wow.
order to make it work. Yeah, like they give you everything you need. Even you just casually looking at it, you could see exactly what they need to write in order to do it.
All right, so I'll write up some code for turn 10 and I'll just send it. I'll just email it over to their community manager.
I mean, hey, if you could figure it out, by all means. Yeah, there was that whole thing about that one guy who came up with a patch that actually got implemented. I think it was Grand Theft Auto 5.
Yes, yeah.
It's a thing. It can definitely happen if you do the work for them. By all means,
I think you reduce load times by like 50% or something. Yeah.
it goes right back to what I was saying too. If you come to them with a solution already ready, that's infinitely less work for them to do, and then they don't have to go through the whole game lab process. And that's actually a good question I'll hit on too. A lot of people ask me, what the hell is game labbing? Because I talk about it all the time. Game labbing is literally when you've got one person who's sitting down playing the game, trying to figure it out, and you got one person who's cracking at the code. And you guys are quite literally trying to see, like, okay, you're doing this is causing this. Let me see what's happening where.
Right. Huh.
Interesting.
Well, I mean, we could just talk about this for like the next 5 hours. Like seriously, this is super super fascinating stuff. I think we definitely, yeah, Cameron.
I just wanted to ask one last question and probably leave it at that. What can we as a community do? Like, what's our best shot at getting these things fixed?
Best shot for getting things fixed. Okay. I mean, not to toot my own horn, but I would say relying on me is a pretty good move for now, because I can still reach out to a lot of people and talk to them. In terms of people who want to get out there, get interested, and then start having open discussions with developers about achievements not working, I would heavily encourage you to try to Google up the regulations. Just look up Xbox XR policy, and then you can try to find it really quick in the Microsoft Docs folder. Get informed, read up on it. If anything, if you really want to look at the C++ language behind it, and I've been also trying really hard to stay away from technical terms throughout this podcast, because there's a lot of stuff itching in my mind to say it very technically, but I don't want to, because I know not a lot of people are going to be able to follow it well. But read through those docs, read through those policies, get informed, and then if you do come to those devs with the issue, have like a whole slew of information ready. You guys aren't going to be able to have P-stats and analytics like I would, but please definitely bring forth like any pictures, documentation you have. I've even had people send me quite literally a video of them like on their phone recording a laptop screen to showcase a bug, and then I would send that to a dev, and they would say, "Oh, okay, now I see what's going on." And there's something we just had 2 days ago. Somebody had messaged me on TA, and there was an issue where a certain game was running at 3 times the speed, and it was an issue with their monitor, where their monitor was too high quality for the game.
Right.
So it was making it run insanely fast for some reason, and then they swapped over to their laptop, and then it worked right away. Just some little troubleshooting on our end there, but of course I still reported that bug up. Yeah, is it a bug or a feature? But yeah, I still reported that bug up anyway, and they're still working at it now. But just things like that, having information ready, and then anything that you've got compiled from people, and as always, definitely be vocal in the forums, because even if you think that somebody doesn't see it, people are looking. And there have been countless times where I've quite literally linked the TA forum for somebody's game and said, "Hey, have you seen this?" No? Okay, well, you might want to read this. This is the exact issue I'm talking about. This guy right here, whatever their gamer tag is, GG Meth Smoker 800, he's got a whole thesis of why this achievement doesn't work, and he spent 30 hours trying to make it happen. And they'll go, "Oh my God, this poor guy. Okay, we're on it. We're going to figure it out."
We already have examples of some uni students that have way too much spare time messaging like 2,000 people on TA.
It honestly, it helped getting that voice out there. It really worked, and you saw the result too. A combined effort of several people with the help of a lot of Microsoft insiders and just very vocal members of the community with big voices. Their voices got even louder when they had all of those people that person message come in here and dive into the pile too, saying this is affecting me, this is affecting me, and then they're like, okay, we will fix it. Doing well, or people care about it, they will fix it.
That guy is actually in our chat at the moment and said that he copped a 1 month ban for the spam that he sent out, but he said it was well worth it. Which fair enough.
Yeah, shout out to my boy Kiku over there.
Yeah,
doing the Lord's work.
All right, let's again. Thank you so much for coming on. It's it's such fascinating stuff. I definitely want to get you back on because we could talk about this forever. So we definitely want to revisit a lot of this stuff probably a little down the line once you've got some more time and it's not 4 a.m. for you.
Like I said, I could go on about things forever. I've got so much more that I still haven't even covered. That's hyper specific, not hyper specific. Before we segue into your next topic, I know you're probably running on a time crunch right now, trying to squeeze in some more stuff before the podcast ends. But I want to kind of bring up what I talked about in the beginning again, really fast. Like Breakwaters, Light Break. There are a ton of games. If you guys want to really get invested in having a slice of yourself in a project, I definitely recommend anybody listening to the podcast, keep your eyes glued to Kickstarter. Keep your eyes glued to Kickstarter because these guys are hungry, very hungry to be able to elevate their product in some kind of way. Whether they get funded or not, they still try. So if you want to get affiliated with something coming to Xbox, that's a very good way to do it. Whether it be you have yourself in the game or, just a little Easter egg that you have, by all means, eyes glued to Kickstarter because even teams that say, hey, we're not going to go to consoles, that can change quite literally overnight. Once again, Breakwaters is a great example. They crushed their funding goal, crushed it, and right now they're a little bit overwhelmed, but they're definitely interested in coming to consoles. And that's something that they're actively working on, something I've actively talked to them about doing. If you're looking at somebody who is 1,000% coming to consoles but has not publicly announced it, Lightbreak is a great example. Great example. And they have an active Kickstarter going right now. If you guys want to shoot over there and take a gander at it, last time I looked, they were at like 61% of their funding goal. So they're right there. And then you can get a slice of yourself in that game as well. There's a lot of stuff coming to consoles right around the corner, big and small, like acquisitions that you're going to see come out of nowhere. Kickstarter is a gold mine right now, and a lot of console publishers and porters are realizing that, and they're keeping their eyes glued onto them now. And they're even outright soliciting offers to up-and-coming Kickstarters. So even if you're a prospective game developer yourself, if you have a B game that you're working on, by all means, go for it. And if you have a project you've already completed and you're hearing this podcast right now or in the future, whenever you hear it, by all means, shoot me a DM, show me what you have, and I can get somebody for you if your project can meet the criteria. So just keep these things in mind. Anything is possible. Stay positive, stay happy, etc. That's my spiel. Off to you guys.
Fantastic, absolutely. And we absolutely want to get. We're definitely seeing a second or third wave of Kickstarter games coming through now, which I'm really, really excited about because we're getting some really interesting stuff. All right, so we'll just move on to. We'll just sort of fly through some of our news stuff that we've got here. Again, this is not so much news as it is confirmation that I'm always right. Basically, Microsoft have come out and said their vice president for business, Laurie Wright, has come out and said that in a court case that they during the Epic and Apple legal battle that's going on, Wright testified that essentially the Xbox doesn't make any money as a console, which is not hugely unusual. But there was a lot of talk around how expensive the consoles were going to be before they came out, and the thing was that the Xbox One and the PS4 were sold at a profit, but the consoles before it were all sold at a loss. You make it all up on subscription services and attach rates and things like that. So there was a little bit of question around, well, are they going to continue trying to sell these consoles like to actually make profit on the consoles themselves, or are they going to sell them at a loss to get the price point down? So they've confirmed that both Sony and Microsoft sell the PS5 and the Series X and Series S, I'm assuming, at a loss at their current rate, which is not super surprising. But they've kind of said, oh, well, they sell at a loss, but we're definitely looking at, having it be, make some profit on it in the future as components become less expensive. I guess the theorizing, how much of a loss do they need to, do they need to sell these at? Because these consoles are pretty powerful. I mean, considering what it costs, especially in terms of components these days. Cameron, do you remember the story that we ran about how much the PS5 was costing in terms of just parts alone? It was something we did a few... I think they said... Yeah.
You would assume that they're selling at a loss, but it wouldn't be that far from breaking even.
Well, yeah, obviously, yeah, again, how much is a loss, I guess, is the question, is probably pretty important financial data that they don't want to give out. But you could probably draw an inference. I think it was, they said, the PS5 was costing about, $500 US, or it was like $497 or something to make. And just in terms of parts itself, again, that doesn't include shipping and other bits and pieces. Yeah, of course, right? But I don't know. Again, it's not so much a story that, there's much to talk about other than it's just interesting to see that they've kind of gone back to the old model of, being a loss leader to try and get people into the ecosystem, as opposed to, selling overpriced boxes with Kinects attached to them like they did last generation.
It's both parties too. It's not like...
Sure. The systems are more similar than they've ever been before, right? So I suppose it's not hugely surprising. Man, and I just say this. I just wanted to take the opportunity to say this Apple and Epic legal battle has just been an absolute goldmine for information around the companies and the kind of stuff. I thought we saw that, like we talked about the other week, how much Epic was essentially losing on the Epic Store with all the 1-year exclusivity deals and the free games they're giving away.
There was a chart that
they're very bold too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's when I say losing money, that service is losing money. They're still making money hand over fist in terms of the Fortnite and everything, and the Unreal Engine and all the other stuff that they do. They had. We talked about how they really had to make that push. They had to be competitive.
In terms of how much they're outright paying.
Yeah.
Cost per user after.
Yeah, exactly. So like stuff that you would just never see normally, which is, it's really interesting to get a view into what is, essentially the biggest developer in the world in terms of market share, with how popular Fortnite is, and just this huge explosion that they had with that, and the amount of money they're making and the amount of money they're burning through to compete with Steam and its quasi monopoly. It's really interesting, and it was like something that you were talking about before, Ray, in that sort of Steam cage around the fact that, well, if you're going to put it on a PC, you just sort of throw it out there and no one ever sees it because it gets lost in a sea of millions of DLC updates and hentai games and fucking all the other shit. Hey, look, no, I'm not going to judge. Steam can sell whatever they want. I'm all for it. But getting eyes on stuff, it's like that community, that face-to-face thing with the community, and actually getting your name out there and having being a person really does set you apart from the hundreds of asset flips and Minecraft clones and all that other shit that ends up on the store that you just your eyes sort of glaze over when you see 200 things coming out per day. Yeah, like Cobra said in the chat, that there's millions of games on Steam. Like how do you get people to look at yours? And Epic going the route of saying, well, we're gonna slash prices. We're gonna have a store that's gonna give you free stuff just for being here, and it's gonna be much more curated and less and much more competitive. Like you don't have to fight with everyone, but we're gonna pick and choose, more like Steam was in its early days. And I'm interested to see if it pays off for them in the end. I don't know. We've talked about it before, but Ray, do you get into PC gaming? Again, we haven't really talked about your sort of gaming habits as such much.
You know what? You're right. I totally forgot to mention that. So I literally play anything and everything, and I know that
Yeah.
sounds very very corny, but
No, hey, you fit it right in.
sitting up here, yeah, sitting up here now at a million plus, I'm very much so just interested in playing anything I can get my hands on, whether that's Hello Kitty adventures or blasting my way through, a new Call of Duty title or whatever it may be. There's always an interesting game just sitting around the corner waiting to be touched upon, and I've honestly found a lot of enjoyment in just playing smaller titles and then kind of giggling to myself like, haha, I know how they messed that up, and
Right.
oh, this is a cool thing that I haven't seen somebody do yet, etc. Or recognizing tropes, because now I'm at the point where even off of Xbox, I've played upwards of it's got to be at least at this point more than 5,000 different games of just organically playing through things and actually completing things, and it's
And you know how the sausage is made, right? At the end of the day, you know both ends of how it works and how it shows up. Yeah, for sure. And
it's definitely it's interesting every time to just go through something. And I'll be honest, it's pretty rare though now that I find myself completely absorbed by a game and blown away or bewildered. Very much so now. It's almost a process of I mean, I still enjoy playing things, but for the most part, I almost know the end of the story before I've even started.
sure. Yeah, absolutely. It's the same with any medium, right? You spend enough time with it, you understand how stories work, how mechanics work, how tropes work. As someone once said, there really are only 10 stories, and everything is a variation on those. For those people who don't know what I'm talking about, don't look into it. It will ruin every narrative for the rest of your life. So in terms of your achievement hunting, so obviously you have over 1 million Gamerscore, which is insane. Do you have a strategy? Are you a completionist? Do you say you play everything, but do you complete everything? Do you have things you? Yeah, again, so I'm trying to hit.
I prefer to complete things, of course. Unfortunately, this tag is quite literally my first and only tag I've ever had. So
Right.
this has gone through me being a fresh faced intern at places all the way to where I'm at now.
Right.
So very much so at a point where I didn't care about completing things or before I even cared about achievement hunting. There's a lot of stuff on my tag that will never be completed, can never be completed, or I simply don't have the drive to do anymore. But that's for me. It's all about playing and completing what I can and having fun along the way. Because to be honest, I'm a lot of people have hit me with man, you've got a lot of short games on your tag, a lot of easy games on your tag, and I'll be honest, I do try to set myself for a quota to try and have at least 1K per day of the month, just to feel like I'm making progress because I'm meeting a quota or excelling in some kind of way. And I would love to sit down and put more time into titles, but realistically now I only have time to do that on weekends because, and not to toot my own horn, I'm incredibly busy, and half the time, even on the weekends, I'm quite literally in a Microsoft Teams meeting about something for one of my 3 jobs while I'm playing a video game, and I have my camera off while I'm talking to somebody, so they don't see
Sure.
I'm on
Yeah,
sticks.
absolutely.
So yeah, I'd like to complete more AAA titles, but I don't have the luxury of having enough time now. So
Totally
I
understand
usually
that.
only go for something AAA on the weekend, or luckily in this case today I was playing Goat Simulator almost all day because I was on a CQ shift for my quote unquote real job, my military job. I was on a CQ shift, so I'm literally just sitting at a desk for 24 hours. So I had my laptop over there playing Windows 10 Goat Simulator.
Great game. As long as you Flappy Goat's still absolute pain in the ass. Even the 3 times I've gone through it.
I was surprised because I already had it unlocked, so I was like, "Oh, all right." I must have.
Thanks, past me.
Take the win.
Yeah, thanks, past me. So I was like, I don't have to stress myself out.
So yeah, I guess so my follow-up question for that was, in terms of things that you play, are you just an Xbox gamer? Do you have any other consoles? Do you dabble in PC stuff? Obviously, you've talked about Windows 10, but do you have a Steam library? Do you have an Epic account? or are are you hooked on the achievements like the rest of us?
So I am very much so in the Microsoft shackles at this point. I'm so devoted at this point that I feel like if I try to devote myself to another one, it would be an entire other time investment I simply don't have time for, especially with the whole 3 jobs thing and Guff at the same time. I don't have time for it, as well as app development on the side. Like there's too much going on for me to be able to do that, especially since I'm already working like 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. every day, with the exception of weekends. So it's and that's like for my normal job hours. So I don't have a time investment available to play on everything. But I do own older consoles. I don't have a PlayStation 5 or a 4, but I have a 3, a 2, and a 1, and then I have like I have way too many Xbox 360s and way too many original Xboxes. It's hoarder level, and I just have a whole room of just I gotta say I've lost count. It's some of which I've never even turned on, and they're just sitting in there plugged in. I have like this crazy like server stack looking setup of just Xboxes of varying types.
That's amazing.
I tell
it's
you
very
what,
much so a decked out studio.
You see some people just selling a console and 20 games for $50 on Facebook Marketplace, and you just can't help yourself.
Look, not everyone is like you, Cameron. All right, not everyone's got that sort of ridiculous gotta buy it mentality.
What I've really been getting into lately is getting back to games for Windows Live.
Oh boy, me too.
And digging through that rat race. I've been putzing around with a friend trying to get Dark Souls 1 to work and not take the update.
Oh wow, yeah, I did that one. So years ago, I did the Games for Windows Live stuff, and I've sort of tipped my toe back into it. Some of the titles being like, yeah, I never did Legends of the Galactic Heroes, I suppose. So maybe I could do that if I just brush up on my Japanese.
It's a killer right now. I mean, I was able to get the account and everything to work again, but now it's a matter of, especially with Dark Souls, the way it works, it's a matter of pulling the correct title update to make it think that it's updated correctly. But then, some people are just saying it's easier to do it in an offline way. But it's almost like the pride in me is like, no, I'm gonna figure out how to get this to work because I'm a cool guy. I don't know, but oh yeah, I'm sure I'll get it to work eventually. It's just one of those things. But yeah, very much so interested in the whole Dark Souls series completion.
Oh yeah, I've got that, and I'm super happy with it. I'm just unfortunately Bloodborne not available, but otherwise I'm super happy with it. Oh well,
but soon.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I saw that amazingly doctored Game Pass announcement with every PlayStation exclusive on it. It's super legit, super legit.
No, actually skipping that. That is actually a soon though. Like that's actually a no joke. That's a soon.
Oh, really?
Like a soon. Just wait and see.
Okay, all right. I'll keep my eyes. I mean, I still have to go back to Sekiro, which I know technically doesn't count, but it it's
it 100% counts.
The insider scoop that Microsoft's purchasing Sony. Like, is this what this?
I'm just giving you the insight of soon. I'm not telling you.
Right. No. He hasn't told us anything. No, absolutely not.
Yeah. No, I'm. Not said anything. If their conclusions drawn.
Yeah, exactly. No. You draw your own conclusions from this. I mean, again, no one would take anything we say here as fact. All right. Cameron, do you want to talk about this news story quickly you've got here?
All right, I'm going to go through it quickly. So the Yakuza games will be turn-based RPGs going forward. It says RGG because I'm not going to try and butcher myself saying that name again.
I guess that makes sense, right? I mean, like a Dragon has basically been hugely successful in a way that I mean, Yakuza's obviously been a big franchise. I mean, they've made enough of them that you've probably played or heard of it at least. But I mean, it has been its own. I don't know what it's been a brawler for a long time. Like how many games they had? They had like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 plus. Yeah, like it's looking at like almost 10 titles plus the re-releases and the remakes with the Kiwamis and it going in a different direction is not. Yeah, and then Judgment obviously as well. So it's not hugely surprising, right?
Not at
They
all.
killed it. They killed it with that. With bring everything over to Xbox. They absolutely killed it. They are getting so much from that. They love it. They're literally all over it.
Yeah, I wish I had more time to play
Honestly,
them.
we need more games from the East coming to the West, so to speak. We need
100%.
we need more because I don't know why we're not. It's honestly it's been communicated so much at this point. Westerners fucking love anything coming from the East,
Yeah.
even if it's super obscure or strange.
And this hits
Honestly,
that bill with that.
this hits that, and people are frothing at the mouth for the chance to have Persona.
Oh my God. Atlas, come on.
I'm honestly that surprised though that Microsoft hasn't bought Sega already.
Well, I mean, as they say, everyone's talking to everyone all the time, right? Like, I mean, who knows what's going to happen? But it's I would be surprised, but I also wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, I don't know. Microsoft have their priorities, and they have recommitted to saying they want to have more investment in the East, which makes sense because they've never really had much of a foothold there. They tried with the 360 generation with the Mistwalker stuff they did with Blue Dragon and Lost Odyssey and stuff like that, but yeah, it clearly hasn't really taken hold because you just don't hear about anything Xbox in Japan. But like the thing is that like Japanese development is kind of, I don't want to say fallen off a cliff, but you can definitely tell that the times have changed, right? Like I'm not off base saying that. In terms of where the focus has been, you see a lot more now out of Europe, out of especially Eastern Europe. You see a lot more American development as always, but now you're seeing development coming out of other places like South America. But the Japanese stuff has become more insular and less of it is making it out of Japan. It's a bit more like the old days where they're making kind of interesting stuff, but we're not seeing a lot of it. I don't know if that's intentional or if this is
Yeah, there's a lot of obviously successful moves that could be made on that front, but it's all about our exclusives. This is ours, blah blah blah. It's like you make so much more money if you just shovel all your stuff to these Westerners. They will eat it up, literally. Like, I honestly I don't know where the mindset is on that front, but I'm sure there are things that I'm not privy to on that end of exclusivity for them, or maybe they feel attacked for the most part about releasing too much to us over here in Xbox land, just on the basis of having their own exclusive titles. Maybe I'm not too sure.
I mean, there's a lot of business that happens behind the scenes, right? We're all kind of just speculating, but
yeah, that's heavy speculation on my part as to what's going on.
Yeah.
I gotta say, personally, I'm one of those people who would eat anything up coming from over there, because even as a developer, half of the time when I see something that's new, refreshing, or blows my mind, it's something that comes from Japan, or it's something that comes from an Eastern developer of some kind.
Yeah, I'm a total weeb. I try to hide my power level a little bit in public, but I don't own any body pillows, is what I'm saying. But I still you're right. Seeing a lot of interesting stuff come out of Japan. I mean, the whole JRPG genre, JRPG genre started with Japan, right? And it's going back to it, and I'll talk a bit about what I've been playing later. It's going back to it and being wow, I miss a lot of the stuff because Westerners have done JRPG or RPGs, but it's not the same. There's some I don't know. It feels weirdly kind of racist saying Japanese magic, but there is there's a charm and a way that you get in Eastern development that you just cannot replicate in anywhere else in the world, for better or worse in some cases, in terms of how they treat their characters and how they draw them, but it's such a loss to not have that stuff available, especially on the Xbox platform where we spend all of our time.
I'd say a lot of it too is the fluidity and the over the topness of a lot of items, because one thing that we love here in the West especially when something is over the top and like hyper animated, and it's because what it's doing is it's setting off everything in our brain that's saying, "Oh my God, look at all these flashing colors and all this movement. It's amazing. I love it. I want more of it." And we don't really get that as much over here. But when we do, we lose our shit. So when you play something like Yakuza, and then all of a sudden you're slamming a dude's face into a urinal, and the urinal breaks, and then he bounces off the fucking ground and flies up into the air, you're losing your shit because it's amazing. It's hyper. You just love it because it's something different that you don't see anywhere else.
I had one of those moments today where I did a heat combo in a convenience store, threw a thug over, I guess, the counter, head hits into the microwave, and then it's just like, heat this junk up. And it's just amazing. Like, I've never seen anything like that, but it was like, I basically just paused the game, went, Nikita, you need to come over here and see this, and then re-replicated it.
Amazing. Yeah, it's the kind of thing most people don't even think about. So I'm really interested to see, like, obviously the creator of Yakuza is like a massive Dragon Quest fan, which is why the seventh game was essentially just Dragon Quest in real life. So I'll be really interested to see, like, does that translate to 8, 9, and 10 or whatever they end up doing, right? Like, does this actually work? They say it's going to be this going forward, but is it going to be exactly the same? Because obviously are they going to have different characters? Again, I haven't played through all of 7, so I don't know how it ends or anything like that, because unfortunately, I just don't have that kind of time for the Yakuza series, which is really sad, but it's just the reality of it, because they are massive time sinks. But I'm really curious to see, like, because like JRPGs by their nature are less accessible than a button mashing fighting game or beat 'em ups, right? Like there is more to think about. There's more strategy. There's more stats and numbers and other shit to worry about that is just less appealing to people who just casually want to get into a game where you run a phone sex hotline really dramatically and you have a chicken called Nugget, like in a bowling alley, and you run a hostess club and you do karaoke. Well, look. As much as I love Mahjong, holy shit, that's a lot of Mahjong.
I started at 9 a.m. this morning, and up until 3 or 4 p.m. I was working on just being a bouncer submissions.
Oh my God. All right, well, let's talk about some mini games. I'm going to talk about what I've been playing this week, because
I'm just going to quickly say too, with this announcement, Lost Judgment announcement, I am so happy that we've only just got Judgment on Xbox, and now I only have to wait till September for the sequel.
So is it coming out to Xbox at the same time?
Yeah. I would assume anything from now on from them is just going to be same time hits.
Fantastic. That's what we want to hear. All right. Well, I'll quickly fire into what I've been playing. It's been a quiet week for me. I'm only at 1,600, but I've been playing a lot of Far Cry 2, still grinding away, trying to get those last couple of achievements, or the literal last achievement, actually. I have about 8 weapons left. Shout out to Nick for helping me out with that by throwing an extra box in there to speed up my kills. I played a bit of Resident Evil 7 because I got peer pressured into it by Valak and Mike, because they've both finished the game. So I went and did the 21 plus survival mode. I got up to the final. So basically, for those who don't know, you have to play blackjack. There's 11 cards in the deck, and you have to basically try and get 21. But there are like trump cards that you can play to like change the rules, like swap cards, return cards. Your enemies can play trump cards. You can play like counter cards. Like there's a lot of like extra strategy involved. But basically, you have 10 bet points that you have, like say like $10. And if you hit 10, if you bet all 10, you die. You have to beat 10 opponents without losing all 10 of those. And each of those opponents has different strategies, different skill levels of how good they are at blackjack, and then also like what trump cards they have to play to fuck with you. I got to the last hand on the last character, on the last guy. I had 6 points left. He played a card that meant that I couldn't draw any more cards, which was very unhelpful. I had a 19. I was pretty confident that he had like an 18, because I thought he had a 2. I thought he had 17 because he had a 2. Turns out he had a 4. Again, I don't know exactly why. So I went all in on this last hand. I was like, cool, got him. turns out he had a 4. I completely miscounted the cards, completely fucked myself, lost 2 hours of progress, and nearly threw my controller through my TV. But I picked myself up the next day, went back to it, sat through it, and completely smashed through it. So that's one part of that done. I'm super, super happy about it because it was one of those DLC achievements that they added after I'd finished the main game, and that I thought, I was like, I'm never going to go back and finish this because this is way too bullshit. But I got it. I'm happy about it.
Is it the one that's meant to be the hardest in 7? Or?
It's one of the harder. There is one harder achievement in there for Ethan Must Die, which is like a roguelite little mode that they have in there. That's the one that Mike was doing, and she got very upset about, but she got through it as well. So good job for Mike. I still have not attempted it after my disastrous attempt about a year ago, where I nearly threw my controller again. This Resident Evil has been on my mind a lot because people have been talking about the 8th game being quite good. I've also been playing Halo Wars 2. Did some of the Terminus achievements with a friend of mine, Strax. We got most of the big wave achievements done. There's only just a little bit of cleanup to do, and I did a bit of the miscellaneous stuff. I still have to go through and do all the campaigns on Legendary. It's going to be a bit of a drag because some of the DLC missions are quite difficult, but we'll get to it. Good TA on that, and it's good for my completion percentage because I've got 129 achievements for it. So every bit I do is ticking a little bit closer to that 95% completion. Also playing a little bit of Saints Row 4 on PC just because it's easy. And then I'll talk about the big time sink that I've been losing my ever-loving mind on. Final Fantasy IX all day, every day. This game is really fucking good. I've never played Final Fantasy IX back in the day. The first Final Fantasy I played really start to finish was 10. And I fell in love with the series after that. I'm looking forward to 10 coming out.
Yeah. Yay!
Yeah, I'm looking forward to 10 coming to Game Pass in about 4 days. So I'm hoping to finish 9. I'll probably just roll straight into 10 and 10-2. 10-2 is not as good, but it's part of the same list, so I have to do it.
Start of it, absolute perfection.
The WAP scene?
Is it Ramstein?
Ramstein? Oh, yeah, you talk about... Yeah, oh, yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, Final Fantasy 10. Yes. Yeah, the whole FMV stuff, yeah. I fucking loved it.
Absolutely amazing.
It's great.
To do Hast after, and I was like, yeah.
Oh, God. You're such a fucking 15-year-old. It's ridiculous.
I really am.
Yes. Jeez, I have not matured at all. Final Fantasy IX, great game. I really enjoyed the story. I like the characters. I know I'm going to get shit for this. I don't like the job system in the other Final Fantasy games. I like having defined characters that are their own thing, that they do their role, and you just level the shit out of them. I don't really care about customizability. Like, the Sphere Grid is kind of a nice mix because the characters start in various areas, but you can move them into other areas later. Whereas this is like, okay, you have a black mage, you got a white mage, you got a blue mage, you got a dragoon, you've got a fighter, and that's basically it. And you've got a guy who punches people. And a summoner, and it's great. Like, the story's great. I really enjoyed the combat. Again, it has boosts, so you can plow through most of the story really quickly. Obviously, I'm in a rush because it's leaving Game Pass in a few days. Trying to get through it. I have 3 achievements left. I just need to beat the final boss. I need to beat 100 people in the card game, Tetramaster, and I need to beat the game again in under 12 hours, which shouldn't be a problem because I don't have to do any of the side stuff now. So this game, I got to the end of the story. I had like ×3 speed on just because I'm running through it, and I used the basically invincibility cheat and just kind of plowed through it just because I'd never played the story and I was interested and I just wanted to get through it. And I got to it. I was about an hour or two too slow to get the special weapon, so I have to do my speed run, which is fine. But man, this game is rotten with fucking minigames though. Have been mini games in previous Final Fantasies, I know, and there's still ones in, I know in 10 I'm going to have to dodge 200 bolts of lightning, and I'm going to have to capture a shitload of monsters, and I'm going to have to fight all the Dark Aeons, and I'm going to have to do the Chocobo racing, and all that. I know that there's all that shit in there to get all the ultimate weapons and stuff. Yeah, exactly, right? I know, and I know that 10-2 is going to have a lot of that as well. But holy shit, I had to, I listed off the minigames, okay, so the Tetramaster card game is fucking terrible. Triple Triad was much better in Final Fantasy VIII. The rules don't really make any sense. I'm 60 opponents in, so I've got another 30 or so to go. It sucks. It's really bad. The The rope skipping minigame can fucking eat a dick and choke on it while it's at it. Having to skip 1,000, holy fuck. Okay, I'm so... thank you, Cameron, for telling me that there was a thread on Tier that actually had a dedicated Xbox script or a PC or Windows 10 script. I ran that, worked first time, because I was in there like looking through the forums on like Xbox 360 achievements and on PSN trophies, being like, okay, here's one that like tracks the pixels of like where the shadow is and all this fucking shit. Oh my god. And I spent hours working on it and got nowhere. So
at the end of the day, just if you can't find anything on the forums, just tweak it a little and test it.
Yeah, I tried, and like it was a nightmare. But eventually, like on the TA forums, there was a few people who were like, "Hey, this worked for me. Hey, this worked for me." I put a thing on that limited my frames down to 30, and it worked first time. So I was super happy about that. That's great, but that minigame can get fucked. There's the sprinting one where you have to mash the the X and B button really quickly to beat a hippo in a race 80 times. Or like 16 times if you beat him by a significant margin, which you won't most of the time because he's really fast. There's a game where you have to dig shit up with a chocobo, which takes forever, which allows you to then use that chocobo to climb up mountains and run across water and fly and stuff. There's a whole mini game where you have to run around forests and wait for a guy to ask you 15 questions. He randomly shows up and you have to answer the questions correctly. And if you get even one of them wrong, you don't get the achievement. It's just like there's so much to this game. There's the whole auction house stuff, which actually I don't mind, but like there's a lot of padding to this game in a way that I don't really like. I get it because like the fourth disc is basically like it's like, hey, the fourth disc, we're going to close off a lot of areas, do the side quest shit because like and get all the ultimate weapons, and do like some treasure hunting because like. Otherwise, it's just the final dungeon, which is a straight line, pretty much. And then having to kill 10,000 enemies is a ridiculous achievement because even if you grind to level 99 with every character, you're not going to kill more than 3,000 enemies in a playthrough. I literally set up my Cronus at a part at the very beginning of my speed run, right? Like I had a save file, and I was like, okay, well I'll come back. My speed run's at this point. I left it running for 17 hours straight to get the 10,000 kills of just fighting the same 4 enemies over and over as they keep attacking you. It was fucking ridiculous. So the achievements in this game are whack, but it's still doable. I've put, in terms of actual play hours, I'm probably about to hit 30 hours of actually playing the game. I'm going to have to do my speed run still, so it's probably another 4 or 5 hours there. And then there was the 17 hours of grinding, which was idle grinding. So this is maybe a 50, 60 hour completion, but you can idle grind a lot of it. But it is a slog to get all the minigame stuff done. It's a real shame, but I'm going to get it done, and I'm thinking about maybe going back and doing some of the other Final Fantasies as well, because I've already done 8 again. Maybe I'll go back to 7, because I know 7 is a bit of a slog too, but it is, people gush about it. I'm not a huge fan of the active time battles, but I think the thing is, the next thing I really throw myself into is going to be Final Fantasy 10 and 10-2. As soon as it comes out, as soon as it's on Game Pass, I should say, I'm just going to do it. Yeah, it is a real shame because I really feel like they would have benefited from them. The achievement lists don't look too bad for them. I mean, there is all the stuff around, you got to beat like Nemesis and the penance and all the Dark Aeons and stuff. But it is going to be a real nostalgia trip for me because that was really one of those games that really just blew my mind in terms of like what games could be on the PlayStation 2. It's just so good, and I'm sure it's aged great.
The only thing that bugs me with almost any of the older Final Fantasy games is no matter what you're doing or where you are, some motherfucker always wants to play cards. You could be getting shot at, getting attacked. All of a sudden, there's a dude hiding behind a rock, and he's like, "Hey man, you want to play cards really quick? So get my fucking ass beat. Come back later."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was so funny because again, like I'm going around challenging all these people to card battles in the 10th and 9 rather, because I'm at the very end of the game, so there's about like 110 people you can challenge. So I'm like, I have to go to basically all over the world and find the remaining people that I missed. And it's like, I feel like when it just reminded me when I played through The Witcher 3, and it's like everyone you walk up to is like, hey, I have this real serious quest for you. I need you to find my wife. Who's been kidnapped by this monster, but also, do you want to play some Gwent? And you're like, fuck yeah, I want to play some Gwent. Let's play some Gwent. It's,
Struggling to cope with the loss of my dead son. I don't
Exactly.
know how I'll ever get over it. But hey, I got these Gwent cards real quick.
Yeah. The best thing about that was that they didn't record any voice lines for anyone accepting the game of Gwent, so it's just Garrett going, hey, do you play Gwent? And the person just kind of, like, vaguely nodding. Just, like, kind of their idle animation, and then it just cuts to the Gwent game. It was so good.
Please help. You've got to bury my son. I can't believe they left his body out there. Hey, you play Gwent?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Oh, it's so good.
Wipe those tears away. It's time to play Gwent, motherfucker.
It's time to duel. Yeah, so
we need fan art of Geralt with like a fucking Yu-Gi-Oh deck.
He's got to have the yeah, exactly. He's got to have the whole fucking thing on his arm, and yeah, exactly. Fucking Dark Magician.
My blue eyes.
But yeah, so I've been slowing down a lot, focusing on a lot of Game Pass stuff. It's every 2 weeks I say, okay, let's have a look at what's leaving, because it's probably something I need to do, and this was no exception. So we'll see in another week what's on the shopping block. But yeah, that puts me at 1,600 for this week. Ray, what have you been playing? Just briefly.
Sure, yeah. So, Goat Simulator. Goat Simulator all day today. It's going to be a mystery for this weekend. I'm probably going to sit down and see what kind of time I have, and then maybe play some more Resident Evil 2, because for some reason it just keeps hitting my head that I want to play more Resident Evil 2. So I'm probably going to actually go back and finish Resident Evil 2, because I know what happens for the true ending and all of that, but I still need to actually play them and nab those achievements really quick and play through the actual Claire B side and all of that. So I'll probably try to do that. I'm pretty experienced when it comes to Resident Evil, so I'll probably go for my S rank hard playthrough, first try, and just see if I can swing it.
No rocket launcher, eh?
Well, not yet. But it might come to that. If things get rough. If I could find a way to grind out points or figure something out, that little in-game shop thing.
I was gonna say, you give Capcom $5, they'll give you everything you need.
Oh shit! Never mind. Oh, I'm mixing it up with 3. My bad. 3 is the one where you can actually grind up your points and get RP and stuff like that.
Yeah, which is what I did for that in the Japanese version. I was like, there's no way I'm doing Inferno mode without a rocket launcher. You gotta be kidding me.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. I saw Inferno mode and I was like, all right, yeah, let's see what this is like. And then I immediately got folded. In like the first, I think it was like the first area I got folded because I misstepped, and then one of the extra guys that spawns in and whatever the mode is right after hard, like they start spawning in right after that.
Yep.
The enemies around.
Mm-hmm.
I got folded by that guy, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm just dead now.
Yeah.
And then I think I did the tutorial like 2 times again, and then I got folded at the same spot. And I was like, okay, let me I need to focus. And then I got past that. I was doing really well. I made it all the way up to the point where the giant, I forget what it's called, but the giant toy shop head turned around really quickly.
Yeah, and it's way faster on the harder difficulties.
I got completely fucked there. I was like right near the bottom of the steps, and then I think I hesitated for a second, or like something happened, and then I just died. And I was like, all right, well, that's a wrap for that. And that's when I caved and started getting the coins and grinding up points.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, if I'm going to do this, I'm not going to keep folding like this.
I'm with you. Anything else?
Honestly, that's what it's looking like for now. I'll probably see what kind of sessions are available. First thing probably going to be on my mind is going to be sleep, because I think I'm up to like 30 plus hours of being awake right now. So
oh boy,
pretty tired.
All right, Cameron, what about you, mate?
I'll quickly just breeze through mine.
Yeah, okay, moving swiftly on.
Well, damn.
Rainbow Six Siege 2.
No, Rainbow Six Vegas 2, you mean?
Sorry, Rainbow Six Vegas 2, yeah. I'm pretty
He's
much
an insider.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. He's got the real name for it.
I mean, like quarantine, they couldn't do that anymore.
No, they cannot.
So yeah, basically just been working in the multiplayer achievements. I accidentally left myself in a session this morning, but being the nice guy I am, I basically just left my headset on, talked to him, just started up and went through Yakuza Kiwami 2, doing all these street fights.
Oh, yep.
I've only just got up to the last one at 2 o'clock, and that is beyond difficult. And I'm nearly maxed out, so I think I'm going to have to tweak a few equipment, weapons, that kind of stuff, just to beat the last one.
Mm-hmm.
But managed to do all the vending machine drinks, going through, did most of the restaurants, and done, I think, like 60 to 70% of the sub-stories. So I'm sitting about 500 Gamerscore for this.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, there's going to be a lot more that I need to do for...
I was going to say the next 500 is going to be pretty rough, though. Hey, you decided to do this. No one forced you.
I'm really enjoying from what I'm playing of it, but then just the extra stuff at the end, it's like,
sure.
Oh, cool. Like, all right, it asks you to do 20 battles as a bouncer. Cool. I need 100% completion. There's like 60, or what feels like 60.
Right.
But I mean, it's just bashing X for most of it, so still enjoying it. Destroy All Humans.
Oh, yeah. Just came into Game Pass recently, right?
Yeah, I think last week or this week. It essentially just feels like a carbon copy of the PS2, which is pretty much what I wanted. PS2 looks prettier. Essentially, you could call it a remaster, but
okay.
I'm pretty much, I want to say like a third of the way through that, but I imagine there's probably a little bit more to do the challenges, so I've got no idea of what the completion for this is going to look like in terms of hours, but nice game.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I've heard that it's not too bad. There is definitely some challenge to it, but you'll be fine. You've played much more difficult games.
It's not bad at all. You'll pretty much breeze right through it.
Yeah. Cool. Zombie Army 4. Alex put something up in our Discord. Just if anybody wanted to try it, and I loved the original trilogy. I really need to go back to it. But started playing 4, and 4 is really, really good. Start getting a crew of 4 together just to breeze through the campaign. But we did, I think, 2 full chapters the other day. Quite enjoyable. I mean, Sniper Elite feel is typical for those kind of games. But, yeah, it's quite good. It's been so long since the original trilogy, I can't really remember what sets it apart. You know, they just kind of feel like the exact same game. But I'm sure there's some difference.
Sure, I mean, they pretty much are, right? I mean, that's... Again, we need to go back to Strange Brigade, but that also has the same DNA, right?
See, I have a problem with Alex specifically of I start a game, and then we play it, and then we never go back to it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Good for me, because I don't care about completions, but,
Drive me up the fucking wall. Yeah. Wonder what that's like.
It's fine. Saying that, Halo MCC, I am 25 achievements away.
Oh, well, that's easy. Come on, mate. What are you doing?
Hold on now.
So
What's your last 25? That's the real question.
I've got 2 lassos, 6 speed
Which
runs.
ones?
Reach and Halo 3 ODST, which I don't think will
Complete or left?
just left. Like, I've got the Alaska Master from the original 1 through 4.
Okay, all right.
So yeah.
Wow. Okay, yeah, those are literally the 2 easiest ones.
Yeah, I'll say ODST is super easy. Yeah.
So yeah, Halo 3 ODST. I got to work on the speed runs for all of them. I feel like I should have Halo 4s already unlocked, but for whatever reason, my legendary speeds didn't track the other day.
Oh.
So I need to figure out what the go is there. In terms of the multiplayer that I accidentally started for Steven, I am down to assists, grenades, and killjoys. So I'm sitting about 65% with them. I've been doing it with Kami. Yeah, other than that, just done a few boosting sessions just to get most of the multiplayer done. Me and Steven finished off Halo 2 Legendary last week. 5 achievements left in Halo 1 and then just miscellaneous ones like getting the Grunter token free, which I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but it just seems to be RNG based.
It is a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, it's 100% RNG.
I think it's Flipian or whatever his brother.
Yeah, Flipian.
Yeah. Other than that, most of it's been pretty easy. Like I did the library on Heroic the other day with the no death run, and did 2 quit outs, and everything worked fine. I thought I might have avoided the achievement.
Oh, nice.
Went through Truth and Wreck with Stephen first go. Basically just going for the score. Did the not getting detected, which is weird for me.
Yeah, it was very weird for you because you usually fucking Leroy Jenkins every enemy in the area.
I Leroy Jenkins everybody in the area. I ran straight ahead of Steven, and I basically went, did that unlock for you? No, what? I just got the, not get detected the first enemies on Truth and Wreck. And he's like, you prick. Don't know, but like, maybe I just get lucky once in a million.
All right.
But yeah, and then I guess the most important one of the week, I got access to the Rally DLC for Forza Horizon.
Ah, yes.
I have 1 multiplayer achievement left to boost for that DLC, and then it's Car Club Baby, and we are done with all the major titles.
That's impressive. That's very impressive.
I mean, I'm still going to go back to 2 and finish the 360 stack just to have everything, but I know it is like 2012 this came out, but it feels so good to actually play new content for me.
Sure. That's the one Forza Horizon that I've played. So
yeah. So like I said, if you want to help me get the multiplayer stuff done, I greatly appreciate it. I hopefully will have access to that account again, so I can smash through the rest of Car Club stuff. Does it really take that long?
No, not that. It's not that long at all. There's that one difficult achievement for playing without the assists on manual or whatever, but other than that, everything else is easy.
Did that second try.
So yeah, so that took me a shit ton. Like, it took me a lot. Again, I'm not very good at driving games, as people will know, so that's where I really struggled. But I got it eventually.
Actually, I say second try of a different map. Because Steven was in the party, and I'm just like, all right, cool. And then like after half an hour, I managed to get it. So yeah,
Great.
Other than that, 1020. Probably just going to be sticking between Halo, COD, Yakuza, and Forza Horizon now, as usual.
Keep you nice and busy.
With Forza Horizon, I'm getting that feeling that I'm going to have one of these close done, and I've got like 2 to 3 Game Pass games to do, and that.
Yeah, exactly right. And we need to get back to Strange Brigade.
I mean, I'm up for it. I mean, I don't think we will have much luck with Kirby if we.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It'll just be us. It'll be you, me, and it'll be the remnant team. We'll get back together for it. Jesus. All right. So, guys, this is your opportunity to ask any questions. I didn't see too many in the chat. Just a lot of shit posting as usual. Yeah, exactly. Fucking Kiku fucking memeing up the place. But otherwise, I think that'll be pretty much the end of the show. Yeah. I'll slip them in. Yeah, exactly. If you want to get in contact with us, you can find us here on twitch.tv/Real Gamerscore Podcast, where we do this each week. So for those who don't know or listening to this recording later, we do these shows live now, which is why they're so fucking scuffed. However, if you're listening to this not live, I've probably cleaned it up so it sounds amazing. We're trying to get to that 50 subscriber level, so if you are interested at all, we would really appreciate a follow. We're trying to hit that 50 link. We've got a tracker up and everything. It's really, really important so we can get to affiliate, and it helps get our popularity out there and make us real potential players on Twitch. For what that's worth.
We have names now. We have the affiliate status box. I'm going to talk to some of the patrons whether you want proper names or gamer tags or something, but we'll have that here. I'm cleaning it up a little. Hopefully next week I can get the chat bot working. Because that
Yeah,
seems to have not done anything the whole time, which is great.
Hey, it's a learning process. This is still one of our early days for our live streams, but we're really enjoying them, so we're definitely going to continue them where we can. If you're going to get in contact with us, otherwise, you can email us at hello@realgamerscore. On Twitter @realgamerscore, which Cameron here mans. As we previously mentioned, discord.io/realgamerscore and patreon.com/realgamerscore. You can also write questions into the show and put them in. The Discord is probably the best place to put them. Otherwise, you can ask them here in the chat if you're alive. We've actually got a question here from Kiku saying, is there anything that you can tell us, Ray, about how the Windows Phone syncing stuff got fixed behind the scenes? Is there anything you know that we don't?
Anything that I can disclose within reason?
Sure, within reason. Obviously, we don't want you to step on any toes by any means, especially not for fucking Kiku of all people.
So the technicality behind it, no, I can't discuss the technicality behind what was worked on and how it was done. What I can say comfortably is that there were there's a dedicated team on the inside that worked on it. I'm sure you already know this, Kiku, but there's a dedicated team on the inside that worked on it upon hearing, the large outcry of people saying, hey, this is going on. And then we had our own little TA insider who cannot be named that was also in there deep as a Microsoft rep that assisted pretty heavily. And that was pretty much the only time I've seen them let themselves be publicly known. But I don't think that they publicly disclosed that information, that they actually have ties to Microsoft, so I don't put them on blast. But we had help from a Microsoft representative, if you will, that was very outspoken about getting the issue fixed. That was present on TA and very much so watched a lot of what went on.
Gotcha. And then Aftos has mentioned, what can we do to help make Unobtainables obtainable? We've sort of touched on that already, but just do you want to sort of surmise the sort of best steps?
Sure thing. So best steps. If you detect an issue right away, one, make sure that you're appropriately flagging that on TA. Not only so staff and other people know, but so I know, so I can action it myself, because now I have an actual editorial staff that logs everything for me, and they're making a 100% tracker of every game with Unobtainable, so I can kind of chip down the list some more. Because like I said, a lot of people just don't know that there's something wrong or how to fix it. And then what you can do as a player really is, if you detect a bug, or even if you just hear somebody else is having a bug, compile all relevant information you can about it, make sure that there's a forum post talking about it, and then quite literally ball up all that information that you have, and then send that to the developer, seek out their contact information, whether that's a support email, whether that's reaching out to them on Discord, get with one of them and then give them all the information that you've compiled, tell them what's going on, and then see if you can work with them towards getting a patch going.
Fantastic.
And then, if those things don't work and they don't give you a response, grab a handful of buddies and let it be known on Twitter that you all are experiencing this issue, you all would like it fixed, etc. Many voices if you can. And then if that's still not working, you can always take it up with Better Business Bureau, or if things are in dire straits and you can't get the numbers to make something happen with Better Business Bureau, you can always reach out to me and say, hey, these guys are explicitly saying they will not fix it. Here's the relevant evidence that says they won't fix it. And then I can action it from there and try to get things going through a chain.
Great. Fantastic. All right. I think that's all the questions. So if you want to help out the podcast in other ways, you can subscribe to us on your platform of choice. You guys understand, rate, review, subscribe, because you fucking hear it from every goddamn YouTuber ever. Leave your review. Tell your friends. Word of mouth, as we always say, is the biggest thing for us. I casually bring it up every single time I'm recording the podcast in every boosting session I've ever done since I started hosting. People are fucking sick of hearing about it. But the thing is, they only got sick about hearing about it because they didn't go and fucking watch it. If you go and watch the podcast and listen to it, I'll shut the fuck up. I mean, I won't, but I'll tell them that I will.
Everybody loves dead silence, and then out of nowhere just hearing, hey, do you guys know I run a podcast?
Yeah, I mean, again, try and make it a little bit more organic in the conversation. Like, oh, hey, I can't join this boosting session because I'm recording the podcast tonight. And they go, oh, you do a podcast? And say, oh, yes, here's all the links that I definitely didn't have ready to go. I mean, look, whatever it takes, get people fucking listening to this thing, all right? Because it's genius. If I do say so myself. Otherwise, yeah, so retweet our tweets, subscribe to us on our other platforms, YouTube. You guys understand how this works. We're going to try and start putting these VODs on YouTube as well. Again, I don't know why you would watch them on YouTube over Twitch, but like, hey, you know, people have their own things that they want to use. I totally understand. And we want to get some love for our YouTube channel anyway, because we're not really doing much with it. If you want to get in contact with us individually, you can find me on Neomaster on pretty much everything. True Achievements, Xbox, Discord, Carrier Pigeon, the Electoral College, the Illuminati, Skull and Bones, and the Assassin's Guild occasionally when I'm not busy. I've been reading a lot of Terry Pratchett. Cameron, where can people find you?
If you want to get in contact with me, you can find me on the Discord and True Achievements under the gamertag Shadowless Edge. You can find me on Twitch here, Real Gamerscore Podcast. I mean, with it, I think it's pretty evident now that we're probably going to be doing streams Friday or Saturday sometime every week.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you want to follow me on Twitter, Cameron Highland 1 or Real Gamerscore.
Great.
What about you, Ray?
Yeah, if you want to get in contact with me, True Achievements or Discord. Otherwise, if you somehow know me, otherwise, then you know how to get in touch.
You know the secret handshake, yeah.
Yeah, if you actually know who I am in the development scene for some reason somehow, then yes, reach out to me. All applicable normal methods. My personal work email / work email. For anything official. If you're like a proposing, development studio or somebody's looking into acquisitions, or you have some B game, or you just want to ask me any random questions, as long as you're in the Discord server for this podcast, you can just type my Discord ID and shoot me a message or find me on True Achievements.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute fantastic episode, and I'm 100% going to book you in for another episode because I just want to talk shop for ages. Like, cause I love this stuff. It's so interesting to me. I actually don't give a shit whether our listeners like it or not. I'm just doing it for my own enjoyment at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for it. There's always more to talk about, and then
when you have time, obviously, in your massively busy schedule, of course.
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, we'll definitely be able to find time. I got to say right away too. Next week won't be it, but maybe the week after that.
Well, yeah, we'll see how it goes. We got a few guests lined up, so we'll next time we have a spot, we'll definitely give you a yell.
Alrighty, sounds good.
That's great.
All right, thanks everyone. We'll catch you guys next week. Peace.
Peace.
Alrighty, bye.